Man, it really took me until part 5 to load a save on screen, huh? Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Metroid Prime Remastered. In the last part, we first arrived here in Phendrana Drifts, got the boost ball left, got the space jump boots, came back, and even got some artifacts along the way, so now it's time for us to head up to this temple in the first room of Phendrana and see where we can go from there. Also keep in mind that cordite thing I scanned a moment ago for later. It might be important for 100%. Call it a hunch. I've always loved this portion of Phendrana, despite the fact it's literally only 3 rooms and a wall in the first major room of Phendrana. I think it's partially because it's one of the few places you get this kind of music outright. The atmosphere is all good. I love Metroid Prime's atmosphere. Prime 2 does pretty good with it in that regard as well. But Prime 2, when it's not sounding like this, is very oppressive with its atmosphere because of what's going on with the whole Aether plotline and all that. This statue's hands seem to be frozen in place. Keep that in mind for later. A statue depicting the bust of a Chozo shaman adorns this door. A symbol is carved into its forehead. The translation reads, "To pass my gaze, seek my twin within this room." This is a statue depicting a bust of Chozo shaman. Several stress fractures are in it, but if you check the other ones, there's the architect, I think there's like a warrior and something else behind you. We need to blow up the shaman's head and then enter it for the morph ball slot again. I haven't scanned one of those yet. I recommend you do around now, just to save yourself the headache of potentially missing one. Although I think you can never permanently miss morph ball slots. I believe there's some that are just always usable again and again and again. I'm torn on the morph ball tunnels in Prime as a trilogy, because they do a good job of being unique almost every time. It comes down to usually recontextualizing how they use your boost ball or your bombs. But because of how long the bombs take to explode in this game, partially to make it work for jumping the way they want it to, it just feels kind of sluggish compared to Super, Zero Mission, or Fusion's Morph Ball. I don't know exactly why. Ooh, I see something shiny. Unfortunately, we can't grab that shiny yet. By the way, if you haven't scanned locked doors yet, scan the one in this room right now. So here we got some baby Sheegoth. We saw some of these, but I didn't actually fight them earlier in our first visit to Phendrana. Get behind them by using the scan dash, fire some missiles into their back repeatedly, and then do another missile or a charge shot into their exposed back out of the ice for a very quick kill. I used to think these guys were mini-boss tier enemies, but honestly, that's more what comes next more than anything. Because once we take care of all 3 or 4 that spawn initially, it's time for Mama. This is a full-grown Sheegoth. Supreme Predator of the Phendrana Drifts. Sheegoths are invulnerable to most beam weapons. The crystals on their back absorb energy, which they can fire at their prey. Sheegoths have poor stamina. They hyperventilate after using their breath attack, making their mouth area vulnerable. The soft underbelly of a Sheegoth is susceptible to concussive blasts. In battle, they expel blasts of frigid gas to ensnare their targets. They are also fond of ramming and trampling their hapless prey. So, Sheegoths can actually freeze you, as a lot of enemies in this area can. When that happens, you either bomb when you're in Morph Ball phase, or you just mash the jump button when you're as normal Samus to unfreeze. So, its breath attack is its main attack overall, and you can fire into its mouth when it does that, but I just prefer to Morph Ball underneath it and use bombs. Yeah, I can take a good amount of damage doing this, but I'm more or less doing more damage to it than it is to me, so it's overall worth it. It's already dead. I call that a mini-boss enemy because it'll also spawn in later rooms down the line. Wave Beam acquired. However, the Wave Beam works a little differently in the Prime games than it does in the 2D games. In the 2D games, it can travel through objects and hit enemies through walls and all that. In this, it's more of just an electrically charged beam that can only open purple doors, but can kill enemies like pulse bombus that the power beam cannot. Its rate of fire is also a little bit different. Whereas with the power beam, you're essentially like using a semi-automatic pistol in a way. The wave beam is closer to, I guess, like a bolt action in a way in terms of its loading speed. It takes a second to load again. Plus, you cannot notably do rapid-fire missiles while you're using the wave beam or any other beam but the power beam. So make sure you watch out for that. With that said, for as much as I love Remastered, I think the GameCube and even the Trilogy versions handled beam swapping a little more gracefully, at least with the default controls, because on the GameCube you just use the C stick. That's why you have to use the R button to toggle active aiming around. It's because they made the C stick just for beam swapping. In Trilogy you hold, I forget if it was plus or minus, and then point in the direction of the beam you want to swap to, but here in Prime Trilogy you have to, with the default controls, hold the X button and then use the D-pad, which can get a little hand-tie-y pretty quickly. But time for more lore. As the great poison reaches ever further into the planet, we Chozo begin to feel the gnawings of despair. Before it's too late, we now make our last stand. We have begun to build a temple to contain this darkness. At its heart we will place a cipher, a mystical lock powered by 12 artifacts and filled with as much power as we Chozo can harness. We wonder, though, even when we are done, will it be too late? And will the power of the temple and the cipher itself prove strong enough to hold back the poisonous tide that even now swells within the ground, threatening all life? Well, I mean, the lock's still in place, but your Chozo are all gone, but the planet's still pretty alive, so It does kind of get into a weird thing about Metroid Prime from a scale perspective, though. We're not really exploring a lot of this planet. It is kind of just like 5 very close biomes. I'm assuming like we're probably near top of a mountain, that's why it's so snowy here in Phendrana, unless what's causing all the stuff in the world is also causing some weird climate stuff. In terms of overall scale, I think you explore the most of a planet in either probably Prime 2 or technically Prime 3, but that's because Prime 3 is structured in a very different way than basically any other Metroid game. Also, it's a very minor thing, but I remember as a kid in like 2004 or so, first playing this game, and seeing all the little effects that can get on Samus's visor and going, ooh. Most of them are just types of goop. Green goop from enemies, blue goop down the line, some water here and there. Although I do like how in some areas your visor even mists up. The really scary thing is, you've already seen it probably plenty of times through this playthrough already. Whenever you get too close to an enemy and hit them with like a charge shot or a missile or an explosion, you see a flash of Samus's face. That has always scared me whenever I first see it, because I never know when to expect it's going to first happen. Her face is noticeably fixed up here in Prime, but it's not a big difference. It's mostly more of a lighting difference that makes it more visually apparent and not looking like a ghost. So in this room, we need to activate those 3, no, I think it's actually only 2 boost ball platforms, and that allows us to bomb this morph ball slot, flooding the area temporarily. We have to do this at least twice, because we need to both enter that morph ball slot on screen right now, and get to the top of that platform in order to access the next portion of the Phendrana Drifts. This is one of the few timers that is probably actually a little strict, which is kind of surprising. Most of the timers in this game either give you just enough time or plenty of time. That one, if you miss one of the jumps, you're just gonna have to wade through the water until it ends, and that can kind of suck. Well, I guess you might technically be able to get an infinite locked door in this room, I guess, because I think you can always just re-trigger this water, I think. Mind you, I'm not sure how many things are changed from Prime 1 or Trilogy in terms of minor things like that. We know for a fact there are some logbook wording changes here and there in the remastered version versus Trilogy, but by and large it is based on Trilogy. And something I recommend you take advantage of on your first playthrough, because you're probably going to need it for the health restore, or just a save point to go back to if you die coming up. When we get up to the top of this platform, one of the doors around us is locked with a blast shield, and I think I even opened the blast shield right now. That is a save room. I recommend taking that because the next one, there's a lot of enemies in the way to it, to be frank. Because now we're in an indoors area. And we're not alone. The space pirates are finally here, and they weirdly throw a shadow pirate at us first. That is their stealth pirates. You can only damage them consistently when they're visible, but I think you can just shoot a missile at them while they're invisible and still do damage to them. You just gotta figure out where they are. And now we actually get to scan the main space pirates. Despite the fact we saw several of them at the start of the game, you couldn't actually scan them as normal pirates because they were all injured beyond recognition, I guess. This is the space pirate base in Phendrana. If you've thought the game was very focused on exploration so far, don't worry, they got you covered. This next section is, by and large, mostly puzzle or combat. The game does a good job at pacing itself between more explorative portions and sections like this that are more combat-oriented overall. Would I prefer more exploration period rather than just pure combat? Yeah, because that was more of a Halo thing at the time. In fact, there's a lot of comparisons made between Prime and Halo, particularly Prime 3 with how its first hour to 2 hours goes. I think overall, Metroid Prime at least feels different enough combat-wise than Halo, mostly because it has the scan dash and the circle strafing and the beam swapping at the least. Plus, you don't have to worry about ammo besides your missiles in this game. Prime 3, not so much, but we'll talk about that when we get there. No, Prime 2, rather. Prime 3 has a different ammo reserve now I think about it as well, but one that's nowhere near as mandatory to manage, I guess is the way I should phrase it. Oh, so yeah, here's the pulse bamboos. Cousins think they're called the wave bamboos. As you can see, we can take them out with the wave beam. Not that that matters a lot, but enemies like this can be pretty key for restoring your missile's health or another limited resource down the line if you're running low on places to grind. So the annoying thing about this being a pirate base, though, there are pirate lords all over the place, so get ready for a lot of reading. Because I think there's at least like 4 in this room. Log 10.344.8. We have codified the newfound energy source as Phazon, a V-index mutagen of which we have very little reliable data. Indications point to a meteor of unknown origin expelling Phazon into the environment. This material appears to possess the power to mutate organic life forms sufficiently to withstand its poison. These mutations appear promising, with abrupt evolutionary leaps appearing in a single generation reproduction. Plans to establish a full science team on Talon 4 are being finalized, so that might be the great poison in question, I guess. Log 10.587.7. Mining operations have begun near the crater where Phazon appears to be the most concentrated. Daily Phazon yields have increased 44%, and our mining system becomes more streamlined as personnel and equipment flows increase. Several incidents of Phazon-induced madness have been reported, prompting augmented life support regulations in the deeper chambers. Symptoms include loss of equilibrium, erratic respiration, muscle spasms, and in the most extreme cases, hallucinations. A timeline reassessment for the refinery operation is recommended as the material proves more unstable than initial analysis indicated. Ugh, that sounds pretty nasty. Number 3. Log 10.712.1. Most terraforming retrofitting of security checkpoints on Talon 4 is complete, but we continue to research the alarming epidemic of breaches by local wildlife. Dorm records show no unauthorized entries, so we must presume the creatures are either slipping in undetected during daily personnel moves or else finding their way in through subterranean tunnels. We have found many small breaches of this latter sort and plugged them wherever we can, but it is unlikely we will ever achieve full extermination with our current timetable. Well, at least they always have to deal with pests. Good to see that's just a universal thing. Log 10.515.8. Our initial tests exposing Talon 4's indigenous parasites to Phazon appear to be successful. Increases in strength, size, and aggressiveness are common in all test subjects, as well as unforeseen evolutions like additional poison sacs within the abdomen and the appearance of a second ring of mandibles in several subjects. These creatures were chosen because of their resilience, and it appears possible that given enough exposure to Phazon, they may one day be able to survive on any planet we transport them to. Our methods will have to be refined. We currently have a 100% extinction rate after the 4th infusion period, and most survivors of the 3rd infusion stage are so violent and uncontrollable that they had to be euthanized. Even still, we remain hopeful that further experimentation will result in success. The fact that basically every single space pirate comes down to some form of mad scientist is both admirable and kind of terrifying in its own right. But I at least appreciate that we kind of get a window into the space pirates in these games. I don't want them to be like complicated characters, but I just like how unredeemably evil they are at all times. Plus, we even learned some kind of interesting stuff about them throughout the main trilogy here that you wouldn't have figured about them overall, because they are meant to be the same species as the Debasians we see in Super and Other M, but it's just kind of some weird convergent evolution or something like that. Something about what's on some of these screens looks really familiar, and I can't quite place why. Log number 10.664.2. Research Outpost Glacier 1 in the Phendrana Drifts region of Talon 4's mountains is operating at 85% capacity. Sub-zero temperatures have made Metroids sluggish and easy to control, even those well into the Phazon infusion cycles. Cold containment stasis tanks are sufficient for the juveniles, but some of the larger Metroids have been moved to quarantined caves for safety purposes. Security doors remain an issue as malfunctions due to ice occur every day. Large predators in the waste are also a concern as they continue to kill personnel and breach secure areas. Unfortunately, it has become clear that our containment teams cannot neutralize all of them without a vast increase in munitions and soldiers. Man, even they're all understaffed and underpaid. That's Kind of messed up. Well, I think I'm assuming they're being paid, and that might be wrong. But you know how it be. Thankfully, there's not many missable scans in this entire section. The only one that's technically missable, I think, is in an area that's just adjacent to this, which I'm not even sure if we've seen them on screen. It's the ice beetles, which are just ice version of the beetles from Chozo Ruins. Not a lot to worry about there. Ooh, but this room's real cool. Not for combat reasons. As you can see, most of the space parts in this game fall to between 2 to 4 missiles, depending on where in the game you are, because I think some later versions of enemies might get more HP from memory. But Charge Beam plus Rapid Fire Missiles takes them out pretty quickly. So the main thing about this room is we have to turn on that machine in the center, and this isn't too hard of a task. We just have to do a lot of bombing. Let's see, log number 10.401.7. Phazon mining is underway. Several garrisons have been established, and terraforming of the Chozo Ruins is underway. Security systems are operational, and science team continues to make progress in their biotech research. The Phendrana Drifts have proven to be an optimal location for research headquarters, and soon it'll be joined by a fully operational combat base in Starport. If Command's predictions are half true, we shall rise to dominance in this sector within a decacycle. Truly, these are glorious times. What's a decacycle? I have no idea. Log 10.299.2. Scans of the Spiral sector detected a massive energy spike emanating from a Wanderer-class planet identified as Talon 4. Scout reconnaissance was immediately dispatched to the center of the spike, a landmass at heading mark 40.08.2, returning with planetary samples and atmospheric imaging. Analysis shows the energy source to be an unstable radioactive material of enormous potential. We are unable to perform an accurate risk assessment at this time, but we are unlikely to find an energy source this powerful again. Analysis will continue, but currently Talon 4 appears to be a viable secondary headquarters. What's their primary one? Well, we might actually get a good hint about that in about a minute, 2 minutes, not even. Because before this machine in the center gets turned on, we have to go take care of these bomb slots. Also, it's a very minor piece, but once we've taken care of this last bomb slot, some music begins playing in this room, and I really like this piece. I love the soundtrack in general, but we've yet to reach my top 2 songs in the game. Top 3, even. But one of them is related to Phendrana. It might be the furthest reaches of the region, but I really like that song. We'll talk about that in about 3 to 4 parts, I think. I actually don't remember at what pace we progressed past this point. We're only about a third of the way through the game at the moment. Although by this point, you'll probably have between like 60 and 70% of the scan logs, I want to say. You get a lot of them pretty quickly. Now we need to boost ball through all these little icons to lower these little forks that I'm not sure what the point of is, because this is super science technology, which is beyond any of our comprehension, I suppose. It's a planetarium! It's cool! And there's 2 research logs to scan here in these planets. This is planet Zebes. Mass 4.8 trillion teratons. Planet's crust is primary earthic ore, making it ideal for subterranean construction. A class 19 planet, Zebes is inhospitable to most bioforms. The world was considered unremarkable until it became a base for space pirate forces. And in the exact same system is Talon 4, mass 5.1 trillion teratons. Ecosystem studies indicate that Talon 4 was a biological paradise prior to the impact of an extraterrestrial object. The remains of the biosphere are slowly fading due to exposure to phazon radiation. At current rate of decay, Talon 4 will be a barren Class 13 wasteland in approximately 25 years. So even if we don't blow this planet up, it's just completely screwed. Makes it easy for us, I guess. So the reason we had to go through all that down there was to lower the top of the little planetarium here, because now we could use that as a platform. Plus, as you may have noticed, there was a little item on it for us, and it's a favorite of mine. Super Missile acquired. However, this game moves closer to Fusion and what Dread would eventually be, in that they're not a separate item that you use by selecting a different option. They cost 5 normal missiles, and you need to charge your power beam before you can fire them. but they do extreme damage. I think they do the equivalent of at least 6 to 7 missiles. I don't think it's actually 1-to-1 with that. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Kind of an awkward point, I know, but there's a save point right behind the Super Missile Pack if you want to save and end there, if you're playing along. Thank you guys for watching, and in Part 6, we're going to explore the furthest reaches of the pirate base before heading to our next destination. See you guys then.